we have gone back, when we take a look at worker supports, when workers lose their jobs. I mean, we're back to not entirely, but very close back to sort of a 2019 EI system at this point, with some exceptions. I mean, the big lesson that we learned at the start of the pandemic was the value of a simple, accessible benefit like the CERB that completely replaced the EI system in the early months of the pandemic at $500 a week. They created an adequate floor on incomes for people so they could look for other jobs. And we saw a lot of job movement out of the food and accommodation sector, which was hit particularly hard in the first couple of waves of the pandemic, into other sectors. People got other jobs. And in no small part, that was likely due to the fact that they could access a simple benefit like the CERB that was a flat amount, that was a fair amount more than they would have gotten on EI. As a result, they could find other work, and this is one of the benefits of these types of supports. I mean, that has been wheeled away. We're back to 55% of previous earnings, which for most Canadians on EI will be in the neighborhood of $300 a week. They're for self-employed workers that they had almost continuous coverage until October through various programs, although it also had been whittled back to $300 a week. And then from October through the start of the new year, there was nothing for self-employed workers until the new lockdown benefit, which itself seemed like an afterthought that wasn't at all ready for Omicron or wasn't at all ready to actually support workers in lockdown. And so they rushed to get that out the door. And in essence, then everybody in the country now was eligible for the lockdown benefit, also $300 a week. So this was meant to be very specific to geography, but that was all thrown out the window because that was a terrible idea in the first place. Now, and it's unfortunate that we haven't learned these lessons. The federal government swoops into the EI system in times of recession, and then swoops back out again in better times. This is actually somewhat unusual. I mean, it's actually in other EI systems, employment insurance systems, it's not just workers and employers that contribute to it, it's also governments. And so, I mean, we do this alternative federal budget every year, and we look at what are some improvements, practical improvements we could have in the EI system that allows more workers into the system who've paid into it, but aren't securely employed enough to get enough hours to get in the door. How would we allow them in? How do we lower the hours requirement? How do we create a floor at $500 a week? How do we boost the coverage rate higher up? And one of the ways that we pay for that is to have the federal government as one of the contributors to the EI system. Yeah. Now, EI helps people who have an attachment to the labor force. They have employment earnings. And one of the reasons why people live in poverty is they don't have employment earnings. That's the problem, right? They can't work for a variety of reasons. They themselves are ill. There's, someone in their family is ill. Someone won't give them a shot. They live with disabilities, and someone won't give them a shot, won't give them the proper supports. And so this isn't about the EI system. It's about building a better income transfer system that supports Canadians that aren't seniors and don't have children. This is one of the big gaps in Canada in terms of income supports. If you're a senior, you do have access to a basic income through the old age security and guaranteed income supplements. If you're a family with children, you have access to a basic income via the Canada Child Benefit. Those could certainly be higher, but they exist. If you're a Canadian with disabilities or you're an adult that isn't in those first two groups, you have essentially no support from the federal government. And your primary support, if you live in poverty, is likely social assistance, and all of the issues that go along with that.